And tell us something about your vision of the rainbow tribes, the whirling rainbows of peace and all that. So tell us something about that, because I know that's a strong interest of yours.
Yeah, well, what I'm doing by doing the camps, I've always wanted to use festivals and camps as a way of doing spiritual revival, as a way of doing that. And the festivals kind of escaped. They got away. They got into sex and drugs and rock and roll, and you know, a lot of the rest of it was kind of there. It was all there, hidden away. It was all, the Hare Krishnas were in there somewhere handing out the food. The pagans were doing a ceremony up in that corner up there, all 50 of them. You know, it was all happening. The leaflets were all being distributed. You know, people's general vibration got higher when they were at a festival. But equally, they got more and more wrecked. So those of us who then decided to do camps saw camps as a way of dealing with much smaller numbers of people and keeping an agenda going. On a festival you can't keep one agenda going, don't even try. But on a camp you can keep an agenda going. You know, you can say to all the people who are coming, I mean, you came to one of our camps a few weeks ago, you know, and you gave your talk, and the Krishnas were there and they were doing their chanting and handing out food and blah blah. But one could say to everybody, this is what the camp is aiming for, so we're all pulling together in one direction, you know, and that's what we do at camps. And I say, you know, that we're teaching teachers, educating educators, and at the same time giving families a bloody good holiday, which they need.
Do you have a policy on drugs and alcohol particularly? Because it seems that alcohol is pervasive in society. Do people tend not to drink when they come to your festivals, or do you discourage it?
They do drink. No, I'm not interested in whether they eat meat. I'm not interested in whether they drink alcohol. What I'm interested in is the way they act and react.
Mm-hmm.
So people come to enjoy themselves,
mm-hmm.
and your idea of enjoyment is very personal to you.
Right.
Now what I try and do is to hold the two ends as much together as I can.
Right.
You know, if you really can't take the heathen on the site, well, please don't come.
Right.
But if you're really going to wreck everybody else's enjoyment, please don't come.
Yeah, so it's really the only problem with alcohol is when people drink too much of it, start yelling abuse at each other and start punching each other. I mean, apart from that, you know, it's not intrinsically evil, it just, you know, but there does seem to be a major problem with drugs and alcohol in society. What's your view of that overall? Do you think there's too much of it, or there's just not enough interest, especially for the youth, in other things?
Well, there's no vision. That's the problem is that society itself projects no vision. The Prime Minister is supposed to be leading the country, projects no vision. The Queen is the head of state, but hey, she projects no vision, you know. So you haven't got a vision until you get much lower down in the ranks when there are people with vision.
Well, the vision carries the idea of doing something differently. People in power aren't going to want to change anything. They just want to keep power, don't they, it would seem?
Yes, but, you know, people, you know, quite honestly, the one thing that is moving hugely fast in my lifetime is especially in this country, is consumerism, money, all that sort of thing is just going faster and faster. And the government is supposed to hold the people together so that we go on this journey, and the government are our wise counsellors. What a load of...
You can say it.
You know, what a load of crap that is. They are not our wise counsellors. That's what they're supposed to be. Now, in this country, and you'll probably find it strange me saying this, but in the last 30 years or so, the House of Lords has actually been wise counsellors. Now we're trying to get rid of that. You know, so we're trying to get rid of that and have some sort of elected, appointed mess of what? Mediocrity?
Right.
What? You know. Now, it is true the House of Lords was kind of responsible to nobody, but in their own way they knew they had a trust. They knew it was their job to oversee legislation and to see that the government wasn't getting out of hand. It was also their job to be this ancient chamber within our society where the elders could be. Now, it needed a lot of reform. It needed all sorts of things. It needed new, younger blood getting in there and blah, blah, blah. What it didn't need was abolishing, and I rather think we're going to regret that in 20 or 30 years' time, because the elected politicians have no vision. The political parties have no vision, you know, and I don't know who said it, but it used to be quite a common thing. Without a vision, the people die, you know. And I think that's very, very true, you know. If we had a vision, would we be at war in Iraq? If we had a vision, would we be at war in Afghanistan?
Well, what do you think? What do you think those wars are contrived for? What do you think? What purpose do you think these wars are accomplishing? And for whom?
What I think has happened is that the American tail is wagging the dog. I think that there are a relatively small group of a few thousand neoconservatives in America who grabbed the agenda when nobody was looking, who stole the elections. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to do this. Hello? Hi, Beth. You might think, but you've just gone somewhere. And really, then, George Bush, I don't know, I do not see him as hugely intelligent. You know, he's obviously the front for something. But George Bush then drags Tony Blair. And you see the problem, and here is the problem with vision if you're not careful, because both George Bush and Tony Blair thinks God speaks to them. Well, sorry, that's very dangerous. You know, I know that, you know, that a lot of religious people think God speaks directly to them. Well, most of them are not in a position to do a huge amount of danger, and Tony Blair was and has, and George Bush was and has, and all of it actually shows that America and Britain are not democratic anyway. If they were democratic, power in both countries would have been very differently balanced. And they know it. That's why they don't want proportional representation and things.
Well, how can there be a democracy when the distribution, well, wealth is so disproportionate? There was a film recently, The Secret, and they quoted a statistic that 1% of the population earns 96% of the money in circulation. I mean, in those circumstances, who are the politicians serving? It would have, be obvious that they're serving the money, really, wouldn't it?
I think that's right, but I mean, oh, I'm sorry. I'll turn this off.